All right, let's deal with the other Goslings that I wanted to talk about today, which is the Family Reserve Rye Cask. Now, I have to admit that this is a bit of a cheat. This is not the bottle. Robin Wynn, whose bar I'm in and who's very kindly allowed me to be upstairs and use the joint to do these videos so that I could get something more interesting than just a plain white background. He took the bottle home after I tasted it. So you'll see the photograph in the written review that will accompany this, but unfortunately, this is all I have. But the important thing to understand is that the only difference between the rye cask appearance and this bottle is the fact that the label isn't red, but it's green. That's it. And of course, it does say it's rye cask, right? What is it? Well, as we've discussed before, Goslings is a company that was founded in 1806. They've always been spirits merchants, if you will. In 1860, they started making their own rums. At that point, it was just a whole question of, them having barrels and people coming with their pewters and their containers and their whatever and bottlings, and then they would just pour it out of the barrel into there, and that was it. In the First World War, they started using champagne bottles such as this and sealing it with sealing wax. Which led to the name. We want the the one with the black seal. And then in 1948, they trademarked the brand, and they created the Black Seal brand, which was pretty much the old rum for the longest while. They are very fierce about their trademarking, as evinced by the fact that they have also invented or created a cocktail called the Dark and Stormy, which is, in point of fact, trademarked as well. As a friend of mine called Josh Miller from a now not very often updated website called Inuakena out of California found to his cost, and I will link to that at some point in the written review as well. That's kind of by the by, though. I mean, I don't know if anybody really gives a shit with the thousands of cocktails we have available to make with it. But the important thing is that Goslings is actually quite well known, and they have this thing called the Family Reserve, which, as I pointed out not too long ago, was something supposedly special, but for my money has just been commercialized and made into a name like the Lost Casks or the Chairman's Reserve or the Private Stock or whatever. It doesn't actually mean very much. Now, I've commented as well on the question of disclosure, so I'm not going to rehash all of that here. We don't know where the stocks from this rum come from. Bermuda does not have a strong distilling tradition. They don't have a major sugar industry there. So as far as I'm concerned, if they are distilling anything, it's in small quantities, certainly nowhere near the sort of volumes that they need to preserve a brand or to maintain a brand sales around the world as they do, because I've seen Goslings in quite a few places. For my money, it's kind of like a bit of a yesteryear rum that has been brought into the modern age, because there isn't very much that's different about it. However, the Family Reserve is supposedly a 16 to 19-year-old blended rum, which by itself is quite impressive, except, of course, if you don't know anything about it, where it comes from, or the stills or anything like that, you got to take shit like that with a pinch of salt too. And this is something that I don't think brands understand enough of. If you don't give enough information about A, B, and C, then the little you give them with D, nobody really cares, and nobody believes you anyway. And you either give people what they want, or you're going to get derided, as I'm doing here. Another point I want to make about this thing is that the bottle is actually numbered. Is this one numbered? Yes. Now it comes with 5 digits, a slash, and then 2 more digits. And I think that last 2 digits is the year that it was made. The Family Reserve, as far as I know, is an annual release. How many bottles? We don't know. It's another one of these unknowns. But this one is bottle number 4992. And the rye cask that I actually tried, that is the basis of this review, is bottle number 11595. So we're talking about at least, say, 15 to 20,000 bottles out there in the open, and that is not a limited release anymore. That is pretty much just a commercial mass market thing now, assuming the aging is correct and they can charge the 80 to 100 Canadian dollars for the price of this thing. The extra 3 years of aging, though, does make a huge difference. The thing is actually somewhere between 19 and 22 years old. I wish they would emphasize that more, because that's a huge selling point, which tells me a lot about their, I hate to say it, but their cluelessness about how to market something that is really quite exceptional. Who wouldn't want to have a 22-year-old rum for for $100? It would be able to justify the price, and you wouldn't have to talk about the Stewart affordability conjecture, right? Okay, enough of this. What's it like? This actually is another glass. I did have a sample squirreled away, so I was able to do that, so I'm not cheating. 40%, that's what this is. And as far as I'm concerned, that 40% is its downfall for the most part. This thing really should be stronger. You are getting the same taste that you did on the original Family Reserve. The rye, it's delicate at best, right? It's almost non-existent for people who don't know what they're looking for. You do get the same vanilla. There is caramel, toffee, bonbons. There's a little bit of very ripe cherries, that slight musty citrus note I've commented on before. It is a little bit more zippy though. I don't know what they did with it. It's like having a bit of black pepper or cayenne sprinkled in there just to, mess with your head a bit. But it is actually not a bad little rumlet. It smells nice, but it tastes so smooth and so easy that you're going to have no problem with it. Again, you're going to have that cinnamon, coffee grounds, minerality, the vanilla, a little bit of cardamom, I would say. And again, there's that zip and there's that pep that kind of like really sparkles up the citrus part of things and makes it into a much more interesting rum than it would be normally. This is definitely the one to get if you have a decision to make between the original, which is this one with the red label, or the rye with the green label. Yeah, this is definitely the one that you want to have. This one really is just a cut above, I think. But even with all of that, with all that pep and sprightliness that attends to it, and the coffee grounds and everything, all the other spices that make it interesting, this is still a 40% rum, and it still doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And as a consequence, I can't entirely say that it's worth more than 83 points, which is exactly what I'm going to give it. I've got one more rum to do in the Goslings line. I never did get the Papa Seal single barrel, unfortunately, but I do have the one that was aged on the high seas floating around somewhere. So I'm going to try to deal with that at some point. I do have the tasting notes for it, so if I can get Robin to give me a sample, well, then that's what I'll do. I just want to say one last thing in closing. Robin Wynn is a very old friend of mine, dating back from before I left the country, and he runs this bar in downtown Toronto called Little Sister. And it's a bar, it's a restaurant, and so on. And the food is really great. I've had, I've nibbles here quite a lot. But I got to tell you, there is a small but excellently curated rum selection there. And because Robin is a guy who likes his rums and promotes them quite handily on Facebook and social media, you could not go wrong with spending a few hours here and just talking to the man. He may not have enough time to spend with you, but trust me, he'll trot out his shit and give you a chance to do it. It's a great bar. The upstairs, which is where I am, is just really, really nice. And I can't recommend it enough. No, he isn't paying me for this, but he is a friend of mine, and I like giving my friends a heads up every now and then just to say, guys, it's a nice place. So that's it for me. I will call you again later with the next rum I have, and I'm sure there's going to be quite a few more. So take care, everybody, and bye-bye.